right, back again. So the next part of the story, I kind of want to deviate and talk about therapy. Um, so if you've been in therapy, um, you're trying to learn more things about yourself. You're trying to, um, figure out, heal through some trauma, different things like that. And, of course, your therapist is like asking you questions about your life, about the things that you're going through. And they'll ask that like one question that makes you like realize something about yourself or realize like the issue like with your trauma, like with the trauma or like what caused it or whatever like that. And yeah, like you get this question and it is like, it unlocks something, right? It's like, oh crap, you know it was me. It was you just start piecing it. The puzzle pieces start coming together, and so there's that shift, right? It's like a switch, but sometimes that switch isn't always immediate. Sometimes it's gradual, and like your brain recognizes it, and so it starts mulling over it, right? You go to sleep and you're dreaming about it, you don't even realize you're dreaming about it, or it comes up in conversations, and so I bring it all up because when I told like my glasses story about getting glasses in the ninth grade, didn't have them before then. So I was taking a bunch of pictures, kind of documenting my life. And so for me, it was a gradual thing of like, I can go back and think now that it was the glasses that was the turning point, but it was a gradual turning point for me. I didn't stop taking photos when I got glasses, right? I told you guys I joined like a yearbook club, and then like later in high school and college, I was doing like photo shoots with my friends. And so then at that point, photography was about the art, right? It was about the composition and posing them, and I was taking photos of a lot of dark skinned people, so really getting into lighting and your ISOs and your shutter speeds and all that kind of stuff. And then like mirrorless cameras were becoming, so I was just getting all into it. I was learning about all the different cameras that were coming out and what was best for this situation and that situation, and all that kind of stuff. So there was this transition. My reasoning for documenting had changed, but I still had that instinct, right? I still had the want to notice things. I still had the want to take the pictures and to document life, but I was doing it now more in a like artistic way. And so, yeah, sometimes I just think that when people think that they have an epiphany, and I think the word epiphany in and of itself has that connotation of like an immediate shift and change in mindset, right? It's like you have the epiphany and everything changes. But yeah, for me it was slower. And whatever, whatever that shift looks like, just, it's okay if it's fast or slow. Depends on the situation, right? Some people, depending on the situation, they go, there's the phrasing, go cold turkey for a reason. So just depending on what it is, will determine if you feel like that shift needs to be fast or slow or more gradual, and kind of, learn to live with it. But I think when it does come to certain like habits, or when your why changes, some people kind of think, when your original reason is gone, that the thing should just stop. If you've been doing something to cope, and then you don't have the need to do the coping mechanism more, you should just let it go. But that's not how it works. We are creatures of habit. We are creatures of routine and ritual. And so sometimes, you've built that muscle, you've built that way of seeing, you've built that habit, that lens, that skill, and that stuff just doesn't go away just because the original reason does. Sometimes it just shifts. So again, for me, that instinct was to witness my own life, remember things, to document, to notice, And I took that different approach gradually after I got glasses. And I think honestly, a lot of us do this more often than we think, right? You start something for one reason, but then the reason changes, and you keep doing it for another reason. Either you find a reason, or it's. I was gonna say just for the love of it, but honestly, that is a reason. That is a perfectly valid reason, right? If you're doing something just for the love of it, just for the play, right? Um, and so I guess what I'm trying to say here is the gradual shift, the gradual epiphany doesn't have to be something wrong. It can just be something that's different. It can be growth. Um, and I think that that's something that we don't often talk about. Um, I think that um, coping mechanisms can then become a craft. Uh, and sometimes I feel like we downplay that um, your survival tools or your coping mechanisms are skills. These are real skills. Um, and so this isn't something that needs to be fixed per se. I think we just need to hold space for it and honor it. So my question for you is, what's something that you used to do for a reason? Maybe you had a definitive reason, um, but then you kept doing it for another reason. And if you did, what's the new reason? What made you change?